Good day, everyone. For this session or day, we are going to continue our series involving managing the IT function. This is chapter 5 and fifth topic or chapter of auditing in a CIS environment. So far we are done with chapter 4 that talks about planning. That's IT deployment risks. You can see this under functions of management on the picture on the screen. So we were done with that. In chapter 5, the first part talked about organizing the activities as well as staffing. So those were discussed in parts 1 and 2 of managing the IT function series. So make sure to check them out. In addition, the source or our book discuss about funding or financing the IT function, which is after organizing. So as said, you wanted to be more specific. So aside from organizing the resources, we can be very specific as to the finances, that's the F, and also with the human resources, that's the S, which is staffing. So the flow now is POFSDC. So for the subsequent steps, we are to proceed to D, directing, which is also known as leading, managing and motivating people, and then controlling, monitoring, and evaluating the activities. All right, so now we will proceed to our video that is to be actually presented and catered by Trisha Diloy. So she will be with us this morning to help us with the discussions involving managing the IT function that is now on directing and controlling. So we'll have directing first, and I'm going to cut the presentation. That's going to be part 3, and part 4 will be on the controlling aspect. So let's have the video now, and let's see. So there's Diloy. Let's begin.
Hello everyone, this is Trisha, and right now I'm actually going to discuss about the second part of the topic, which is about managing the IT function. So I'm going to be discussing about how IT auditors IT auditors and managers both should direct the IT function and at the same time also control the IT function. Alright, so first off, in directing the IT function, IT managers are principally responsible for administering the workflow, managing the computing environment, handling third-party services, and assisting users. So we all know that IT auditors and managers should always look into this so that they can have their processes go through smoothly as they want it to be. Of course, when they need to direct it, they need to, let's say, schedule as well as to what tasks should be done on that particular time in order for the workflow to go smoothly. Also, proper management of each of these responsibilities minimizes business and audit risks. So yes, just like what I've mentioned a while ago, if the workflow is properly managed by both the IT manager, by the IT managers, everything should go smoothly, and every business process that is put in place should be running smoothly, and there should be no conflicts as to the processes that is going on within the organization. So usually in directing the IT function, we have 4 ways or 4 processes as to how you can fully or you can better direct the IT function in a certain organization. So first off is you need to administer the workflow. By administering the workflow, this is to define the levels of service that the IT function promises to deliver to its users. So by doing so, the IT function is able to plan its capacity requirements to meet business needs, and IT users are able to plan their activities around expected service levels. Also, workflow administration must also be scheduled to perform the work. So just like what I've mentioned a while ago, in order for us to be able to have this workflow properly utilized in a certain organization, of course you have to introduce or administer it to the organization. You have to let your employees know how the workflow should go. And at the same time, while you are teaching employees, at the same time you must also make sure that they understand the workflow, and at the same time they would know how the process would go, so that everything should go smoothly. At first, it's guaranteed na it won't be easy, but then in the long run, the organization or the employees, if they're properly trained, they should know how this thing should go, and how the workflow would be able to go through, so that they can also better assess users in the future, if ever they will get integrated into the workflow and in the organization's processes. Since of course the IT users are also vital in getting to know, in knowing if the workflow is working well. So the next step that we need to do is we have to manage the computer environment. So in managing the computer environment, this involves taking responsibility for the computing infrastructure. This includes the computer hardware, network hardware, the communication systems, operating systems, application software, and data files. Also, physical facilities should also be maintained. So of course, what is vital in your one of the things that is vital in your company, or while you direct the IT function, is of course your computer environment. You can't just place your all your data storages, or like your computer equipment, everything that you need in the IT function in a place wherein it's exposed to like harsh conditions, or it's not properly regulated, or it can easily be stolen or whatsoever, or it can be easily affected by the natural calamities, such as probably flood, there might be fire. Of course, you have to take note of that. You have to control the environment wherein your computer infrastructure is in, so that you can guarantee that everything in the workflow and everything within the IT function would properly function well, and it should go well. Because if you don't take care of your computer environment, more or less everything would go awry. Your IT function won't be able to properly, of course, function, and then there would be certain problems that you would be encountering regarding your IT environment. And then next, of course, we have to take note of one part of directing the IT function is handling third-party services. Of course, we all know that organizations right now, there are just certain functions wherein they can't handle it on their own. Let's say, for example, internet services. Of course, a company cannot just have their own although they can have their intranet, but it's different, because when you say intranet, it's just within the organization, but we all need the internet in order for us to be able to connect to other people. Telephone services, there are other third-party services that we need in order for our business to grow. We can't just say that everything, the organization must have like everything that they have, since they're not fully capable of producing certain things which is needed for the organization, which is why businesses and organizations would need to tap into third-party services. So in handling third-party services, we do know that we have to be cautious regarding this one, because of course this is us giving out vital information as well about the organization to other people outside of our organization or outside of our company or business. So we have to also regulate that, and take IT auditors and managers should also take note as to the sensitivity of the data that they are sending to the third-party providers, third-party service providers, they should also take note as to how these third-party service providers would take care of the data that they would be entrusting them. So in handling third-party services, IT managers should establish policies and procedures regarding the purchase, use, and termination of third-party services. Of course, this is vital because just like what I mentioned a while ago, you have to take note as to how these third-party services manage the data that you'll be giving them, because of course this is data coming from your company, which is very confidential, and a breach may be harmful towards your company processes and of course the overall health of your business. You also have to take note as to if ever you do end up canceling your partnership or your subscription to that certain third-party service that you have applied to. You should also know how they would deal with your data and how they would terminate or erase their data from their storage as well, so that you can ensure that your data that you have once given to them won't be used for ulterior motives, or won't be used for other illegal processes. Also, there should also legally binding contracts between the company and the service providers. Confidentiality of the company information shall be ensured while contracting with third-party services. This is, of course, a guarantee, just like I mentioned a while ago, since once you contract with third-party services, you deal with confidential information, which can be really harmful or can really harm your business processes or your business in totality once other people, like other external people who are not related to your organization would get a hold of such information. And then lastly, the last way for IT auditors or managers to direct the IT function is, of course, you need to assist the users. Of course, how would you fully direct the IT function if you can't assist the users, since users are one of the stakeholders when you get them to use your IT infrastructure or your IT function. So in assisting users, you have to ensure that training and education must be integrated amongst the employees to better assist users regarding the IT function. Of course, how would you assist users? How would you better assist users if your employees themselves do not know how to assist the users, or do not know how to work with the IT function? Of course, if your employees would be tasked to assist users in an IT function that they do not know, of course they won't be able to provide clarity, and at the same time they won't be able to provide clear answers as to the users' concerns regarding the IT function. So of course, training should be highly important for your employees so that they can do this function. Also, IT managers can assist users through a help desk. This is very common. You actually notice this in a lot of businesses and a lot of organizations, that there are some they place a help desk or like a contact us portion when it comes to their websites, or at the bottommost part of their websites they would provide email addresses or contact numbers as to how you can reach out to them if ever you have any questions or concerns. This is very much the same. You can actually assist users through a help desk. This is actually very useful as well, because this would immediately go to the ticket line of every organization. There are certain organizations and businesses that has a ticket hub, wherein all concerns coming from the users would go to, and your employees and the IT managers can also assist users from this ticket hub, since they can see all the requests, all the questions, all the concerns that the users have regarding the IT function in that one hub. Also, the IT auditor should determine the extent to which the IT function is effective at resolving, tracking, and reporting problems. So, what the IT auditor would be looking at when it comes to this function in assisting the users is, of course, how efficient and how effective are the employees and the IT managers in handling these concerns coming from the users. Of course, you can't just suddenly close off a concern and shrug it off. You can't just do that, because once you do that, your users might not go back to your business or to your company and not utilize you anymore, because all you do is that you just shrug off their concerns, you don't answer them. So it would render useless, and they would think that the IT function that you have set up is just useless and it's pointless, since also you don't provide them with any resolution to their concerns. So of course, you have the IT auditor must make sure that these employees and the IT manager are doing their tasks right in assisting users. They would monitor as to how each concern is resolved, how the tracking process is done as to how the concern is forwarded within the organization, and also in reporting problems.
And actually, for the discussion of Deloy a while ago involving the help desk, so let's move this a bit because
So
Deloy
in
was okay there. All right, so just before the transition to controlling the IT function. Anyhow, so Deloy mentioned again about the help desk. So if you can notice, like there is a customer service representative or a customer care hotline, as said by her, just for certain concerns of, let's just say, customers or buyers about the products and services that they have acquired or purchased, so that someone or somebody will entertain them. Now, normally the help desk users or the help desk personnel would normally be somebody or someone, or let's just say people who are knowledgeable about the processes in the organization, because the questions could sometimes be ranging from one little area to the entire organization. So that's why it would sometimes take time just for them to be able to diagnose certain problems and provide solutions or resolutions, as said by Deloy. So that's how it goes. And now this is because IT has been emphasized, and this is our course, Auditing in a CIS Environment. We talked about certain operating systems, IT processes, IT functions. So with the relation of the information and communication facilities. So normally the questions could be also technical in nature. So that's why these help desk personnel are someone or somebody, or they, or again, they are people, they're a group of people or groups of them who are knowledgeable not only about accounting or business, but also with the IT in specifics. So that wraps up the directing or leading the IT function. Anyhow, the parts there were thoroughly explained by Deloy, so thank you very much. Hopefully you don't mind with your respective angle at this point in time. All right, so that's fine. Okay, okay, so much better angle. Anyway, so that one. We had some great moments in directing the IT functions. Hopefully you learned something from this session. Make sure to check out our continuation, which is controlling the IT function. And I'll see you next time for another learning moments in auditing in a CIS environment. Thank you very much, and God bless us all.